watching.
Hello, dear. Welcome to Fear Tales. Tonight's story is not just disturbing, it's real. And what you're about to hear has never truly been explained. So go ahead, dim your lights, put your headphones on, and stay with me. Because tonight, we're going to talk about a man named Ronald Weinberg. No, actually, let me start with the right name, because this story deserves to be told carefully. Tonight, we're going to talk about the disappearance of Brandon Lawson. And if you've never heard this name before, I promise you, by the end of this story, you won't forget it. This actually happened in Texas in the early hours of August 9th, 2013. Now, before I begin, I want you to imagine something. Imagine you're driving down a dark Texas highway, late at night, the kind of road where the streetlights end after a while, and all you have are your headlights cutting through the darkness ahead and the soft hum of your engine. You're tired, maybe a little frustrated. You've just had an argument at home, you're not thinking clearly, but you're a grown man. You've driven this kind of road 100 times before. Nothing scares you. That's where Brandon was that night. He was 26 years old, a husband, a father of 4 little kids. He lived in San Angelo, Texas, a quiet town. Nothing too fancy, nothing too dangerous. People who knew him said he was a hard worker, a family man, someone who loved his kids more than anything in the world. He had his problems, sure, everyone does, but he wasn't the type to just vanish. That night, Brandon and his fiancée Ledessa had gotten into an argument. Nothing crazy, just one of those arguments couples have when they're stressed and tired. You know how it goes. And like a lot of men do, Brandon decided to cool off. He grabbed his keys, got into his red F-150 pickup truck, and drove off into the night, just to clear his head. At first, it didn't seem unusual. Ledessa figured he'd drive around for a bit, maybe go to a friend's house, maybe sleep it off in his truck and come home in the morning. That's what she expected. But what happened that night, nobody, and I mean nobody, could have expected. Around 1 a.m., Brandon was driving north on Highway 277, heading toward the small town of Bronte, Texas. Now, Bronte is tiny. We're talking less than 1,000 people, surrounded by miles and miles of nothing. Open fields, mesquite trees, cattle ranches, and pitch black darkness. And then, his truck ran out of gas.
He pulled over to the side of the road, in the middle of nowhere. No gas station nearby, no houses, just a highway, and the darkness pressing in on every side. So he did what any of us would do. He picked up his phone and he called his older brother, Kyle. He didn't call 911 first, he called his brother. But the call dropped. Reception was bad out there. So a few minutes later, at 1:23 a.m., Brandon called 911. And this is where things get disturbing. Because that 911 call, that one phone call, is the last time anyone ever heard Brandon Lawson's voice. The recording's still out there. You can find it online if you really want to. Thousands of people have listened to it. Law enforcement, internet sleuths, paranormal investigators, podcasters, everyone. And nobody can agree on what he says. Now, let me tell you what we know for sure. Brandon's voice on that call sounds breathless, panicked, like he's been running. He's whispering at parts and shouting at others, like he's trying to stay quiet but can't help himself. He tells the dispatcher his truck ran out of gas, that he's on the side of the road, and then he says, and I want you to really listen to this, he says, "There's a guy in a freaking field, and I went to go check it out. I'm running from him." A guy in a freaking field. Now think about that for a second. You run out of gas in the middle of nowhere at 1 in the morning, and you decide to walk into a dark field because you saw something or someone. Why would he do that? Some people think he saw a flashlight, or maybe a campfire. Maybe he thought someone might be able to help him. Maybe he just got curious. We'll never know. But whatever he saw out there in that field in the dark, it scared him enough to run. The dispatcher tries to calm him down, asks him questions, asks where he is, and Brandon keeps talking, keeps whispering, and that's when the call gets really stranger. People who've analyzed the audio claim they hear all kinds of things in the background. Some say they hear another man's voice, deep, calm, talking to Brandon. Some say they hear what sounds like a child crying. Others swear they hear chains rattling, or animals, or even a woman screaming far in the distance. But here's the thing. Every single person who listens to that audio hears something different. It's like the recording is a Rorschach test. Your mind fills in what scares you most. What is clear is that Brandon sounds terrified, genuinely, truly terrified, in a way that's hard to fake. He's not playing around. He's not drunk in the way some people have suggested. This is a man who is scared for his life. At one point, he says something that gives every listener chills.
She passed away in 2024, still not knowing what happened to her boy. 11 years. 11 years of not knowing. But here's the part of the story that really gets under people's skin. The part that keeps the internet talking about Brandon Lawson to this day. It's that 911 call. Because over the years, as the case got more attention, more and more people started listening to it, analyzing it, cleaning up the audio, running it through software, trying to figure out what really happened in those final minutes. And what they started to find, well, it raised more questions than answers. Some audio enthusiasts claim that if you slow the tape down, you can hear a second voice, a man's voice, saying things like, "He's right there," and "Come on out." Others claim they hear something even worse. They hear Brandon say something he never could have said in a normal moment. Some say they hear him whisper, "They have my brother." But Brandon's brother was at home that night, miles and miles away. Why would he say that? Was he hallucinating? Was he confused? Or was he seeing something that none of us would ever want to see? There's another theory that's even more disturbing. You see, in the days and weeks after Brandon disappeared, his family started receiving strange phone calls. Some came from blocked numbers, others from numbers that had been disconnected for years. They'd answer the phone and there'd be silence on the other end, or breathing, heavy breathing. A few times they swear they heard someone whisper, "Help me," before the line went dead. His mother used to keep her phone next to her bed every single night for years, just in case it was him. It never was. But here's the thing that really bothers people about this case.
He says, "Hurry up, please. They're going to kill me." They. Not he. They. So now there's more than one. The dispatcher asks him again where he is, and Brandon says he's behind a fence. He's hiding. And then the call cuts off. Just like that. 1 second, he's whispering, running, hiding, and the next second, silence. The dispatcher tries to call back. No answer. Tries again. No answer. The phone just rings and rings until eventually it goes straight to voicemail. Now, you'd think the police would rush out there immediately, right? A man calls 911, says people are trying to kill him, and the line goes dead. But this is rural Texas. The area Brandon called from is enormous. Miles of empty land between every landmark, and the cell tower that picked up his call covered a huge radius. By the time officers got out there, searched the area near where they thought he was, they found his truck. Just like he said, red Ford F-150 parked on the side of Highway 227, out of gas, driver's door unlocked. But Brandon was gone. His wallet was in the truck, his ID, his cigarettes, everything you'd expect a man to take with him if he was just walking somewhere. All still there. The only things missing were Brandon and his cell phone. Now imagine being his family, getting that phone call in the morning. Imagine being Ledessa, waking up expecting her fiancé to walk through the door any minute, and instead she gets the news that he made a 911 call, that he sounded terrified, and now he's just gone. The search began that morning, and let me tell you something. The area they had to search was brutal. We're talking about thick mesquite brush, cactus, rattlesnakes, dry creek beds, land that swallows people up, land where you can walk 50 feet from a road and disappear completely. They brought in dogs, they brought in helicopters. Volunteers from all over Texas drove down to help. Brandon's family searched themselves, day after day, week after week.
and they found nothing. No body, no clothes, no blood, no sign of a struggle, nothing. It was as if Brandon Lawson had just stepped off the side of that highway into the dark and ceased to exist. Imagine being there, completely alone, in those fields, searching for someone you love, calling their name into the wind and getting no answer back. Just the rustling of brush, the cry of distant birds, the dry Texas heat, and silence. His mother, Teen, she became the face of the search. She fought for years to keep her son's case in the news. She gave interviews, she went on podcasts, she joined every Facebook group, every internet forum, anyone who would listen.
In 2014, about a year after Brandon vanished, a hunter was out in those same fields, not too far from where the truck was found. He was setting up for deer season, checking trail cameras, the ones with motion sensors that take pictures of animals when they walk by. He pulled the SD card out of one of his cameras, came home and started flipping through the photos on his computer, and he saw something he couldn't explain. In one of the photos, taken at 3 in the morning in the middle of the woods, miles from any road or house, there was a figure, a man standing in the brush, looking right into the camera. His face was thin, hollow. He was wearing what looked like ragged clothes. His hair was long and matted, and his eyes were just 2 black holes in the photo, reflecting back at the camera. The hunter couldn't identify the man, but he posted the photo online, and almost immediately, people started noticing something. The man in the photo had a passing resemblance to Brandon Lawson. Same height, same build, same hairline, but Brandon had been missing for over a year by then. If that was him, where had he been? Who had he been with? What had happened to him in that field that night? Now, I want to be careful here because no one ever confirmed that the photo was Brandon. The hunter was investigated, the camera was checked, and law enforcement said they couldn't make a positive identification. But Brandon's family, they looked at that photo, and Tina, his mother, said something that always stuck with me. She said, if that's not my son, it's somebody else's son, and somebody needs to find him. But nobody ever did. The man in the photo was never identified, never seen again, just like Brandon. Now, let's talk about the theories, because there are a lot of them. The first and most logical theory is that Brandon got into some kind of trouble that night. Maybe he stumbled onto a meth cook out in the fields. That part of Texas had a real drug problem at the time. Maybe he saw something he wasn't supposed to see, and they killed him and buried him out there in those endless miles of brush.
And whatever it was, caught him. Now, I'm not saying I believe that. I'm just telling you what people have said. But there's something else. Something I haven't told you yet. Something that even law enforcement couldn't explain. When the police arrived at Brandon's truck that morning, they noticed something strange. Something they didn't release to the public for years. The keys were still in the ignition. The truck was unlocked. Driver's door slightly ajar. But here's the part that always got me. The headlights were off. Now think about that. You run out of gas at 1 a.m. on a pitch-black highway, you pull over, you call 911, you tell the dispatcher you're scared that there's someone out there. Why would you turn off your headlights? Wouldn't you want them on so people could see you, so help could find you? Unless you were trying to hide. Unless you turned them off because someone or something was using them to find you. The other detail the police kept quiet for a long time was that Brandon's truck wasn't totally out of gas like he said. When they tested it, there was a small amount of fuel still in the tank, enough to start the engine and drive maybe a mile or 2 further down the road. So either Brandon was confused, or he panicked, or the truck didn't actually break down at all, and he stopped for some other reason. Maybe he saw something on the road. Maybe somebody flagged him down. Maybe somebody made him stop. We'll never know.
But the picture this paints of a young man alone on a dark highway deciding for some reason to pull over, kill his lights, get out of his truck, and walk into a black field at 1 in the morning, it just doesn't add up. It never has. His brother Kyle has spoken about this case a lot over the years, and there's one thing he said in an interview that's always haunted me. He said that after Brandon went missing, he started having dreams, vivid, terrible dreams of his brother, in a dark place, underground maybe, or in a basement. Not dead, but trapped, begging Kyle to come find him. Kyle would wake up sweating, reaching for his phone, expecting a call, but there was never a call. He said the dreams went on for years until one night, they just stopped. He said he doesn't know what that means, but he hopes. God, he hopes. It just means he's finally accepted what happened. Because the alternative is too painful to think about. Now, every year on the anniversary of Brandon's disappearance, his family makes a trip back out to that highway, to that exact spot where his truck was found. They put up flowers, they leave a little memorial, they say a prayer, and every single year, without fail, something strange happens. One year, his sister said she heard footsteps in the brush behind her, footsteps that matched her own, stopping when she stopped, moving when she moved. She turned around and there was nothing there. Another year, Tina, his mother, said she felt someone tap her shoulder while she was kneeling at the memorial, and when she turned around, she was alone. She said she could have sworn she heard her son's voice faintly, just the word "Mom," carried on the Texas wind. Now, you can call that grief, you can call that imagination, you can call it whatever you want. But these are people who lost someone. And they'll tell you that field is not normal. That stretch of highway is not normal. People who drive past that spot at night, truckers especially, have reported seeing a man on the side of the road, waving for help, looking panicked, but when they slow down to help him, he's not there.
That would explain his terror on the call. It would explain why his body's never been found. And it would fit with what he said. They're going to kill me. But here's the problem with that theory. In 11 years, not a single body has ever turned up. Not a single suspect has ever been named. Not a single tip has led to anywhere. Drug dealers tend to talk, eventually. Someone gets arrested. Someone wants a deal. Someone says something to the wrong person, and the truth comes out. Not in this case. In this case, the silence is total. The second theory is darker. Some people believe Brandon stumbled onto something that wasn't a meth cook at all. That he stumbled into the territory of something or someone much worse. Texas has a long history of unsolved disappearances along its rural highways. People who pull over for what seems like a normal reason and are never seen again. Some researchers believe there's a serial killer or a network of killers operating along those rural roads, targeting people who are stranded, alone, vulnerable. If that's true, Brandon would just be one of dozens of victims, spread across decades, across thousands of square miles of empty Texas land. And then there's the theory the internet really loves. Some people believe Brandon saw something out there that wasn't human at all. In that part of Texas, the locals have stories, old stories, going back to before the highway was even built. Stories about lights in the sky, about figures that walk along the fence lines at night, about ranchers finding their cattle dead in the morning, drained of blood with no tracks anywhere around them. Some people believe that Brandon, in his confused, panicked state, in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, saw one of those figures and tried to run.
One trucker in 2017 claimed he saw a young man walking along the shoulder of Highway 277, right around the same spot, in the middle of the night. And when he pulled over to offer a ride, the man was already in his rearview mirror. He hadn't passed him, he hadn't seen him walk by. He was just behind him now, instead of in front. The trucker said he didn't stop. He just floored it and didn't look back. He said he'd never been so scared in his life. And he said something else that I think about all the time. He said the man on the road, the one he saw for just a second through his windshield, his mouth was moving, like he was trying to say something, but there was no sound coming out. Just his lips moving. Like he was screaming for help across some distance the trucker couldn't even understand. To this day, Brandon Lawson's case is officially open, active, unsolved. There's a reward for information. His family still posts about him online. Volunteers still go out there sometimes, searching, hoping. But after 11 years, realistically, the chances of finding him are almost zero. Texas is a big place, and that part of it is bigger than most countries. If somebody buried him out there, or if he wandered into the brush and died of exposure, we may never know. But here's what really gets me about this story. It's not the disappearance itself. It's not even the 911 call. It's the fact that this happened in modern America, in the age of cell phones, GPS, satellites, security cameras everywhere. A man can call 911, tell them exactly what's happening to him, say, "They're gonna kill me," and then just vanish. And we have no answers 11 years later. It tells you something about how thin that line is between civilization and the dark. You go 5 miles outside of town, you turn off the wrong road, you make one wrong stop, and the world you know stops mattering. You're alone.
And whatever's out there is alone with you. I want to leave you with one more detail, because this is the thing that I think more than anything else proves that something terrible happened to Brandon Lawson that night. In the years after he disappeared, investigators and amateur sleuths and journalists have all gone back to that 911 call, cleaned it up, enhanced the audio, analyzed every second of it. And in 2018, a forensic audio analyst working for a podcast about the case discovered something at the very end of the recording, right after Brandon's voice cuts out, right before the call drops completely. There's about half a second of audio that nobody had really paid attention to before. And in that half second, when the analyst boosted the volume and ran it through filters, you can hear a sound. It's not a voice, not exactly. It's more like a breath. A long, slow breath, right next to the phone, like someone picked up Brandon's phone, held it to their face, and just exhaled into it before hanging up. That sound is the last thing on the recording. The last thing tied to Brandon Lawson, just a stranger's breath in the dark on a highway in Texas, in the middle of nowhere. I don't know what happened to Brandon that night. Nobody does. But somewhere out there, 11 years later, somebody knows. Somebody walked away from that field that night and went on with their life, and they know exactly what they did. And they've never paid for it. Maybe they're still out there. Maybe that's what scares us so much about this story. Not that it happened to Brandon, but that it could happen to any of us. Anytime we drive too far, too late, too tired, on a road that goes through too much empty country. So tonight, when you turn off the lights, when you check the locks one more time, when you set your phone on the nightstand and pull the covers up, I want you to think about Brandon Lawson. A young father, a regular guy who got into an argument and went for a drive and never came home. Because some stories don't end. They just wait out there in the dark for someone else to drive by. Thank you for listening to Fear Tales. If this story stayed with you, if it crawled under your skin a little, do me a favor and leave the lights on tonight. And if your phone rings late from a number you don't recognize, maybe, just this once, don't answer it. Good night, dear listener. Sleep well.